Hey, good morning guys, Rygo here. So I'm just getting our truck loaded up here. We're going to be heading down to Ferrisburg to get a session in for our Wednesday morning board meeting. So it should be a good time. We're going to get out there on all the 2018 and some 2017 gear and just get some footage. And this week we're going to be doing the North Neo versus the Cabrinha Drifter Kite.
Ferrisburg, Michigan. It's Kook Fest out here. We're all kooks. It's us from the shop. I'm not bagging on anybody. Just kooping, have a good morning. It's gonna be a good day.
So I'm back in the shop here after our session over at Northshore Beach. So one of the nice things about working in a kite shop is sometimes you have to have a board meeting. So in this case, you know, we went out on Wednesday morning and linked up with some of the shop riders. So some of the usual suspects were out there, like Steve Lee and Mark Hooksema. You know, we were just out there real early at dawn checking out the waves, and then later on Jake Mitchell from the shop showed up and kind of put some time in on some of the Nash kites and some of the Cabrinha boards. Ryan Hooker, our lesson coordinator, got out there and was getting his foil on. And then of course there was Tucker. And now Tucker, if you don't know Tucker, he's probably one of the most knowledgeable surf and foil guys I've ever met. Pretty much if it's windy or wavy at dawn, Tucker's gonna be there. So, you know, it's just been great working with guys like this, working with Tucker, working with people who are more knowledgeable than myself. Tucker was out there putting some time in on the foil board, and he just caught this wave, and it was just pretty awesome to just see the potential with what foils bring to the table, and just watching him surf this wave on a foil board on a real mushy wave on Lake Michigan was just pretty cool to see. So anyway, we made a point to get out there that day and just test some kites side by side. I decided to put some time in on the North Neo and the Cabrinha Drifter and just try them out back to back, same conditions, same day, and just see what they're all about. So this week, we're going to be doing a review on these two kites as well. Now, what I found is on paper, they don't really look that much different. But once you get these kites on the water, they're actually very different kites. If I were to describe each of these kites in a paragraph, I would say that the Neo is controlled, smooth, and powerful, where the Drifter is aggressive, playful, and well-rounded. So when it comes to deciding what kite's right for you, again, as always, it really just comes down to feel and what you're looking to get for out of your kite. So they're both designed to ride exceptionally well on the surf. They both have great free ride potential, but there are a few subtle differences that I'd like to go over today that might help you make your mind up between these two kites. And as always, this is an open forum, so please feel free to comment. Again, let me know what I missed, and just let me know about your experiences on these kites in the comment section here. So let's start with the power on these kites. The first major difference here is the low end. So to give you some perspective, I'm about 180 pounds, and I was out on the 9-meter Neo, while Mark Hooksema, our local rider here, he's about $160, and he was on the 11 Drifter, and we were both out at the same time. So the Neo, it's going to have more low end. Now we're both out at the same time, and that more or less confirms what a lot of people have been saying for a long time, and that's that from the 9 Neo, you can really expect the same low end and power from a 10-meter or even an 11-meter kite. Now don't let that scare you. My first thought when going out on a grunty kite like this was, am I going to get pulled off the waves with this kite? And I was pleasantly surprised to find that that wasn't the case at all. So to give you an analogy, you can think of a light switch. There's on and off, or there's a dimmer. Now, with the Neo, it's very much like having a dimmer, but on demand. So when you get on that wave and maybe you're a little bit overpowered, you just sheet out, and it's just a very smooth, consistent, but instantaneous D-power. So you're on the wave and you can just pretty much kill the power right away, which is pretty great when you're riding in the waves, just having that kind of on-demand power or D-power while you're surfing. Something else that was nice about the Neo was the driftability. Just trying, going down the line, slacking the lines, just really taking the control out of the equation for moments at a time. And the Neo did a great job at just sitting there, did what I needed to do. It drifted down the line while I did my thing. And just a great all-around performer, really. So to give you a little bit of background here, most of my experience in the waves has been on all-around kites like the Envy, the Switchblade, the RPM, kites that are designed to do a little bit of everything and everything well. And what happens with kites like this, the most common thing is there's a trade-off. So you either pick an appropriately sized kite or even a little bit larger to be powered up, and then that kite powers you through the waves. You're able to get upwind easy, but the trade-off here is you do get pulled off the wave from time to time. It's gonna happen. Otherwise, you know, what a lot of people opt to do is they go for a size smaller than they need to be on, and what happens here is you're working the kite, but it's a much more surf-like experience. You're actually surfing the wave. The kite's not powering you through anything. Now the downside here is it can be difficult to get back upwind from time to time when you're on a smaller kite. And with the Neo, it more or less solved this problem. Just having that power on demand, depower on demand, instantaneous and smooth. It really solved this problem for me, and I thought that was great about the Neo. And I found that to be really advantageous. So what about the drifter? Well, what you see is what you get. The 11-meter drifter feels like what you would expect out of an 11-meter kite regarding power and low end, and that's great. So that power that you're going to feel on the 11-meter drifter, it does feel like an 11-meter. One of the advantages now that the drifter has is the settings. So you can actually set this kite up for onshore winds or side and offshore winds. So you can really fine-tune what kind of conditions you're going out in and really optimize the experience. And then, of course, it's called the drifter. This kite, it's going to drift. Now, when I was speaking with my coworkers, the general consensus here is that the drifter, it does drift better than the Neo. That said, in my experience, I didn't notice that much of a difference between these two kites. And of course now I'm biased after having 9 different conversations about these kites and just hearing everybody talk about them. And more or less, you can expect the drifter to drift better, but personally, I didn't notice that big of a difference. They both perform great in that regard. So something else to consider about these two kites is the bar options. So for example, the North Neo, you can actually pair this with the North Click Bar. And I better lead in here first before everybody gets up in arms. You absolutely do not need a premium bar like the Click Bar. I love the Click Bar. It's clean, it's simple, it works great, but it's a premium bar and you don't need it by any means. The standard Trust Bar, that's going to work just fine. But the one advantage to going out into the waves with a Click Bar is you do have that very fast depower on demand. So let's say you're approaching a wave and you need to take some power out of that kite. It's very easy to take your thumb off that bar and just click, 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 and instantly lose a little bit of power. And not only that, but you can quantify it. And it's just nice to be able to fine tune it like that. There are people out there, I have many friends who just love this. Aaron Johnson here. Now, as I said, this is not a necessity by any means. It's just a nice little advantage and something to consider if you're into fine-tuning your gear. Personally, I'm not that much into fine-tuning my gear, but I do really enjoy the Click Bar. Now, when it comes to the drifter, one of the advantages is that you can pair this with a Fireball system. And what's great about Fireball regarding waves is it does give you a little more freedom of movement. You're a little more liberated. When you're riding in the waves, there is an advantage with Fireball. Now that said, you're going to get more of an advantage if you're using one of the standard rope sliders, something like a ride engine, for example. And that really makes a much bigger difference when you're riding toe side and when you really need to get opened up in your riding. The Fireball really shines for that freestyler or hooked-in big air kind of rider that wants complete freedom of movement and rotation while they're just doing their tricks. But it does apply to the waves and it does help, so that is something to consider. So one of the last things to talk about here is how well-rounded each kite is. Now, both of these kites are made to excel in the waves, and they're both great contenders for freeride kites. One thing that's great about the Neo is you do have the option to set the bridle up for wave or freeride. And I believe what happens when you set the Neo up for freeride is you actually lose some of that low end, and it does start to fly more like what you would expect a 9-meter to fly as. But you know, again, kind of just concerning that rider that loves to feel overpowered, or for some of you guys that just really like to have that grunty low end and a kite that just pulls you through and has a ton of power, you're going to want to go with the Neo. I actually find that I really enjoy riding this kite just on the standard setting. Just having that low end and that power, it makes it's a great jumper. You know, it rocks you upwind. It's just a really consistent, smooth feeling kite. The Neo is actually incredibly fun. Now back to the drifter, this is where I find one advantage between these two kites. So the drifter, again, great in the waves, it's customizable, it's a good freeride kite, but not only is it good in the waves, not only does it have that same great freeride application, but the drifter actually has a lot of freestyle applications as well. So it is a more aggressive, more playful kite, and as soon as you get on the water, you can kind of feel if this kite just wants to pop. I actually have a lot of friends that I've seen posting videos online of throwing down some pretty impressive wake style tricks, which is pretty exceptional for a wave specific kite. So this kite really is more well-rounded than the Neo, but like I said, there are trade-offs between these two kites. So the Neo, it's a smoother kite, it has more low end, it's going to pull you through. It's a little more of a pull and go kind of feel. The Drifter is a little more aggressive, it's a little more playful, but it doesn't feel as refined as the Neo. But with the Drifter, you do get a more well-rounded kite. So there are trade-offs between these two kites, and that is the one thing to consider. So when it comes down to choosing between these two, just ask yourself a few questions. Am I that rider that loves to feel overpowered? Do I want a really smooth, consistent kite? Or do I want a more playful kite, more well-rounded kite, a kite that's going to be a little more customizable in the waves, just a little more niche, if you will? The trade-off here, I would say, is that the Drifter just doesn't feel quite as refined, which is kind of funny because typically with Cabrinha, I regard them as the most refined feeling kites that we carry currently. But in this particular case, between these two kites, there is a bit more refinement with the Neo. Guys, thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and of course, please subscribe. And as well, as I said, this is an open forum, so let me know if I missed anything. Let me know about your experiences on these kites. What do you like? What do you not like? What are your thoughts? Let me know. Until next time, this has been Rygo at Kite, and I'll see you next Wednesday.